This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore. Fresh off the heels of talking about the Rittenhouse Ready bundle, yesterday I talked about that. I'm going to talk about another violent, unhinged, right-wing idiot who is threatening the life of this current sitting president of the United States of America. It's bothersome that the federal government, with the Department of Justice, with Merrick Garland at the helm, does not vanquish these threats as quickly or at all like they should. As someone who faces threats of violence and death at the hands of conservatives on a pretty regular basis, this is alarming. Because if these idiots can level threats against the President of the United States, what hope is there for you and your neighbors who just have conversations on Facebook or Twitter when you are threatened with violence? This is Joe Oltmann, a Colorado gun shop owner who has said that he, will not take weapons off his shelves, even if they are made illegal, and that he believes so strongly that Joe Biden has committed treason. He never says exactly how. He just says it, that he's violated the Constitution. This abject moron who has no understanding of actually what is in the document of our Constitution, and then threatens the life of Joe Biden. I'm going to play a brief news clip from the NBC affiliate in Denver talking about this individual, and then we will read some other quotes and talk about exactly how dangerous this is, and the inaction of our federal government is compounding that danger.
The conservative political activist, who also owns DCF Guns in Colorado, is calling for President Joe Biden to be killed, to be tried and executed for treason. It's not the first time Joe Oltmann has called for the deaths of his political opponents.
We now must beat the NRA again. I'm demanding a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines.
Look, I have gun stores and ranges.
DCF Guns co-owner Joe Oltmann.
I'm not taking one gun off the shelf.
Talking about President Biden on his nationally distributed show Conservative Daily last Friday.
That is the definition of treason, and he should be hung by the neck until he's dead. Sorry, that's the consequence. You say, oh my gosh, you're calling for his death. I'm calling for him to be put on trial, held responsible for hurting Americans, for standing against the Constitution we have, and the consequence of that should be and is up to death.
Oltmann's call for President Biden's killing follows similar rhetoric about executing specific U.S. senators. This that he said about Democratic Governor Jared Polis.
You are a traitor. Gallows.
And Oltmann's call for mass hangings for treason.
I said I want to send the media to the gallows, the mainstream media to the gallows, radical leftists to the gallows, traitors to our nation to the gallows, and they all kind of fit in the same bucket.
There's a term for this sort of violent rhetoric. It's called stochastic terrorism.
Mark Pitkavich has spent decades researching extremism in America.
And the idea behind that is if you just flood the airwaves, flood the internet, flood everything with this sort of incitement, that somebody somewhere is going to decide that it's time to do something, and they're going to take some sort of violent action.
Yet Oltmann's extreme rhetoric has not convinced Colorado Republicans to cut ties. He was nominated by a prominent Republican from the floor of the state GOP assembly to run for governor in 2022. The eventual GOP nominee, Heidi Ganahl, came on a show to receive his endorsement.
I gave you my 100% endorsement, and I think you can actually solve these problems.
Just a few months ago, Oltmann's DCF Guns in Colorado Springs hosted a rally for a Republican congressional candidate who called for the arrest and treason trial of Colorado's Supreme Court justices.
You were rhetorically removing yourself from lynch mob violence.
Pitkavich, the extremism researcher, says the way that Oltmann frames his violent rhetoric through the idea of mass trials for treason is common in fringe circles.
But in the end, you're just talking about killing someone because you disagree with their views. You're still talking about murder.
Oltmann was also the source of the unsupported claim that Denver-based Dominion voting systems somehow conspired with Antifa to rig the 2020 election against Donald Trump. Oltmann faces several defamation claims for that.
These people are dangerous. These people violate the actual Constitution that they claim to love and support. Look, I don't know this guy's military background. I don't know his professional or personal background, but I can tell you that threatening to murder someone or cajoling your low information audience to do so, whipping them into a frenzy, riling them up to where they take the action instead of you, is cowardice. And this isn't the first. I mean, he seems very fond of the gallows. What did he say there? I want to send the mainstream media to the gallows. Radical leftists to the gallows, traitors to our nation to the gallows. This comes on the heels of just years ago, the January 6th insurrection against the Capitol, where a gallows was constructed, not hastily, premeditated. They constructed a gallows on the lawn of the United States Capitol as they chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." You see, there is really I was going to say there's a fine line, but really there's no line between the rhetoric of violence and the execution of violence, the carrying out of violence. It was an armed rebellion against the United States, an armed insurrection against our Congress and against our government and against the certification of a free and fair and settled American election. And then here we are years later, and you still have trolls, dangerous separatists, dangerous anti-government clowns like Joe Oltmann who are continuing the rhetoric and want to carry it out. In this article, there's a segment where they ask the FBI about it, and we just really have to know that he's really serious about it before we can do anything. Is that right? Have we learned nothing? Have we learned nothing? Is this protected speech? I guess that's the question. He's even said in broadcasts before, for the FBI listening to this, I didn't say that I was going to do anything to him. I said he should be put on trial and he should face the maximum penalty. That's what he should have. When we all know we have the commonality of language and the understanding of what words mean and the intent through tone and everything. We know what he means. And I could tell you, do you think he would be sad if the current sitting American president was assassinated by one of the goons who was animated to violence and terrorism through his words? Would he be like, oh, wow, I need to really check myself. Maybe I am radicalizing. Of course he wouldn't do that. He would be pleased. Mission accomplished would be his mantra. Anyway, what do you think? Where are we that this is normalized now? Why is this not national news? We cannot fall asleep. Just because you're not surprised by this, just because you're not shocked by this, doesn't mean this shouldn't be on the tips of everyone's tongue, that this shouldn't be reported on at MSNBC and CNN and CNBC, Fox News. This should be everywhere. Donald Trump should be renouncing this rhetoric. Instead, we all ignore it. Yeah, that's what they do. No. Going forward, this should not be the way that it's handled. Anyway, what do you think? I would love to know what you think about this. We can talk about it in the comments. You can also call and leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, you can email me, as always, daily at dollemore.com. I would absolutely love to hear from you. And if you appreciate what I do, if you appreciate the stories that I talk about, if I'm bringing you value on a video by video basis, please consider supporting my work. You can click the join button below this video on YouTube, become a channel member for $2 a month. You can hit the super thanks button. You can go over to my Patreon page, patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. All those are great ways to help support the work, support the mission, support the extension of the message and the dissemination of what is absolutely, without doubt, back-upable truth. Is back-upable a word? Well, it is now. I appreciate you. Follow me on the social media. I'm at Dollemore everywhere. I'd love to see you there. And I will see you next time. Be genuine. Take care of one another.